Share first.
All right. Hi, I'm Brian, and my presentation is about Chapter 8, Orthopedics Skeletal System. I will be discussing mostly the bones of the head, but we'll start with skeletal, from the Greek word skeletos, meaning dried up or dried body. And the suffix al, which means pertaining or relating to, which will come up in the next few terms. So, skeletal is basically just pertaining to the skeleton. Next is the axial skeleton, which consists of bones of the head, neck, chest, and spine. The word axial consists from the word axio or axi, meaning a central line around which parts are arranged. Cranium is the dome-like bone at the top of the head, also known as the brain case, from the Greek word cranion, with a K, meaning skull or upper part of the head, combined with the suffix which means structure. Put together, cranium is put simply the skull. Within the cranium is the cranial cavity, cranial pertaining to the skull, as discussed earlier, as the cranial cavity contains the brain and other structures like the frontal, which obviously pertains to the front. The frontal bone forms the forehead and top of the cranium, and it ends at the coronal suture. Speaking of coronal, coron means crown or garland-like crown-like structure, and suture from the Latin word utera, meaning seam or stitching. Coronal suture is at the joint where two cranial bones meet. Parietal, derived from the Latin word parais, meaning wall, as in house wall. The two parietal bones mirror each other from the superior sides of the posterior part of the cranium. This completes much of the top vault of the cranium. The parietal bones join at the sagittal suture, which runs from top to center to the back of the cranium. The Latin word sagit or sagitto means arrow or arrow-like. Sagittal suture is the arrow-like seam running midline from front to back. Occipit or occipital means back of the head. The occipital bone forms the posterior base of the cranium. Occipital, the bone that occupies the very back of your head. It contains the foramen magnum. Sorry if I switched a little bit. Um, a large central opening for the spinal cord to connect to the brainstem. Foramen means whole opening, and magnum means large. Tempor, uh, tempor or temporal means temple or side of the head, simply the temporal region. The temporal bones form the inferior sides of the cranium. Styloid. Styloid is another bony landmark on the temporal bone, which refers to the slender, needle-like bony projection that extends downward, forward, and slightly medially from the inferior surface of the temporal bone. Style or stylo means pillar, post, column, or styloid shaped, slender and pointed like a stylus or pen, plus suffix oid, which means resembling. Sphenoid bone is large and irregularly shaped that forms the central base and sides of the cranium and the posterior walls of the eye sockets. Sphen or spheno means wedge or wedge shaped, or plus suffix oid, which means resembling. The ethmoid bone forms the posterior nasal septum and the medial walls of the eye sockets. Ethm or ethmo, derived from the Greek word ethmos, meaning sieve or strainer, plus suffix oid, which means resembling. There are two nasal bones, left and right. Nase or naso, derived from Latin nasus, which means nose, plus suffix al, which means pertaining to nose, all, or so saying, pertaining to the nose. Same as the nasal bones, there are two lacrimal bones, both left and right, but the lacrimal bones are each about the size of a fingernail. Lacrim or lacrimal meaning tear, plus suffix "al," which means pertaining to. The zygomatic bones is a pair of irregular, diamond, or quadrangular shaped facial bones, zyg or zygo, which means cheekbones, combined with the suffix "ic," which means pertaining to. So saying zygomatic bones are, put simply, the cheekbones. The word palatine relating to the palate or palus typically breaks down to the Latin root palatum, roof or the word or the mouth, mouth and palate, and the suffix the "ine" pertaining to or possessing. So palatine means the bones that make your head, make your palate, or so saying basically just the roof of the mouth. The maxilla is the upper jaw bone that consists of two maxillary bones fused in the middle. Maxillary is formed from the root maxil or maxillo, means jaw or upper jaw. Remember this, maxillary, so the maximum jaw, the biggest part of the jaw holding up all of your teeth for maximum power of chewing. And finally, the mandibular. Mandibular pertains to the mandible, or the lower jawbone. The root mandibulo is derived from the Latin word mandibula, meaning jaw or to chew, and the suffix "r" means pertaining to. So, okay. Okay, so that's it. I hope you learned some ways to remember medical terms pertaining to the bones of the head. These are just some credits. You don't have to worry about that. Anyways, again, this is Brian. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you later.
Okay, that's it. We did it.